My name's Jamil, and I'm the creator of Superstar Shooter 16. I'm starting this devlog just to map out the process of launching my game on the Atari VCS. It's also, this first video is just going to kind of address the question of why the launch date is so far out. Superstar Shooter 16 is already available for early access on Steam and the Microsoft Store. But I really want to make sure the launch is something special when it comes out on Atari VCS. Got a whole slew of upgrades planned ahead of the launch date. First one is UI improvements. These are actively being worked on. I've been doing UI improvements for the last 3-4 weekends. Basically, the big things I'm working on is I'm refactoring my code. So in programming world, that just basically means you're cleaning things up and making it easier to work with on the code side of things. I'm also implementing scene transitions, which are basically just a nice little fade in and fade out between each scene. And just generally cleaning up the UI. There's spots where things look kind of pixelated or a few icons are missing. It's nothing major, but I want the UI to really shine in this game. When you go through something that has nice UI, it just has a feeling like it's more professional and it just improves the overall experience. The little things sometimes make a big difference. At the same time, I'm going to be working with an artist to get a trailer made. I'm going to start that process this weekend or next. After that, the next plan is to make some improvements to the music synchronization. Basically, there's a bunch of cubes and things in the background of each level of the game that pulse to the beat of the music, do various things to the beat of the music. Sometimes it doesn't always work properly. I know how to fix the issue. It just hasn't been addressed for a while, so definitely going to take care of that ahead of the VCS release. Not a difficult thing, it just has to be done. Next up, I would say the next 4 items all sort of tie into the same thing. It's balancing out the game difficulty, balancing out the game scoring, adding new enemies to the game, and adding variants of enemies to the game. So the major issues here right now are one, in terms of game balance, it's quite difficult in the first few levels, and then it's extremely easy near the end of the game. So planning to smoothen out that difficulty curve a little bit, more or less, make the first few levels a little easier and make the difficulty either stay consistent or get slightly harder as the game goes on. The scoring system is just ridiculous right now. There's multiplier bonuses you can get in the game, so later in the game, you'll get like 100x multipliers if you've collected them throughout the level. So if you shoot an enemy for 100 points, it's 100 times 100. That gives you 10,000 points. The scores just get astronomically large and crazy. So I'm going to tamper that down a little bit so that collecting a multiplier is actually like an important bonus. I've had a few ideas for new enemies to add to the game, like completely new designs. So I'm going to put a few of those in. And also some variants on the existing enemies. More or less, all that means is like I'm going to take some of the existing enemies, reskin them, change their colors, things like that, adjust their hit points, adjust how much damage they do, how fast they move, and it just adds a bit of variety to the game. All this stuff's super important too because Superstar Shooter 16 uses procedural generation. So the more enemies I can put into the game, the more items I can put into the game, the more sound effects, things like that, it just makes the whole gameplay experience a lot better. The next item has to do with how enemies spawn into the game. Basically, there's a narrator in the game who says things, and as the narrator speaks, things come into existence. Enemies, items, all kinds of other things. And the way it's done right now is kind of really random and unpredictable. And it's kind of fun, but it's also feels like a bit much sometimes. So I think I'm going to do some experiments at the very least with just making that process a little bit more uniform and a little less chaotic. I think people would enjoy that more. I know I would. Next thing is sound effects variety and just adding more sound effects. Sound effects make a huge difference in games, and there's already a ton of sound effects in the game, but adding more is just going to make the whole experience a little juicier, a little more fun to play along with. Uh, Finally, those are all the major improvements to the actual core game. Going to do the Atari VCS port, and at the same time as that, I'll likely do the last item. If any code needs to be improved to uh, enhance the performance of the game, essentially, hit those higher FPS rates in, higher resolution modes. I'm aiming for 1080p, 60 FPS. And then the last thing is to get hooked up to the Atari leaderboards. And at that point, I will launch the game on the VCS. My estimate is, it's going to be sometime between September and November of 2023. But we shall see. And then, post-launch, basically to finish off Superstar Shooter 16, to call it completely done, I want to put a final boss battle in. That will happen sometime in 2024. I'm not entirely sure how difficult that's going to be, but it seems like a large task in my mind. And once that's done, I'm going to call the game finished. I will definitely do an update for the VCS in 2024 to distribute that final boss battle. But that's basically it. I'm planning to do another one of these devlogs in a couple weeks, probably once I've finished with the UI improvements and the trailer, probably talk about how that went and discuss the next phase of the project. Thank you for watching.